Most of us need to be held accountable for what they're doing. Most of us need to actually take action on what we're learning. Most of us need feedback on what we're doing. And most of us really need to implement what we're learning in order for it to really stick.
Welcome to the My Future Business Show, where we get you in front of your best audience and keep you there. Not only are we interviewing the biggest names in business to help you become even more successful, we're inviting you to book your spot on the show to help you grow your business. So at the end of the call, make sure you fill in the interview application form at myfuturebusiness.com/interviews. Hi and welcome back to the My Future Business Show. My name's Rick Nusky. I'm your host, and a quick second of pause to thank you once again for your feedback. It's wonderful, it's warm, it's supportive, and it's making all of the difference knowing that the show is making a difference for you. Now on today's show, I'm with the wonderful Rob Matzkin, and on the call we're going to be talking about all things engaged learning, how to deliver that learning online. We're going to be talking about his coaching and training platform, MyQuest. And with all that being said, Rob, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Rick. Really appreciate you having me.
Now, you and I were just talking about your surfing exploits, and that's a place I love to start because I guess it sets the scene for the rest of the call, because I know that at some stage there you were working very long hours, you were burning out, and you decided to shift gears. And I think that's a really telling story for those who are thinking that they need to grind all day, every day. There's a better way, isn't there?
Yeah, for sure. When people hear about two surfers talking, they think that's all they do, right? So without sliding down that route, no. But I've started multiple companies at this point. I think I'm on company 7, and when I was working on one of my larger startups that we eventually exited, I was definitely burning out. Living in New York City, it's hard to get access to nature, and then at some point, I think I had a nervous breakdown.
Just a quiet one.
Yeah, and I realized I need balance, and one of the things it was 24/7 on. It was very much we were an alcohol delivery startup. I invented that space in New York. Actually, one of our competitors, Drizzly, just went public, not public. They were acquired by Uber for like $1 billion. So,
oh, wow.
Crazy space. But, I was getting calls from my staff on Sundays, or calls in the beginning at 3 a.m. being like, "Where's my beer?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I'm sleeping." Like, what do you want from me?
Beer, apparently.
And I took it. A beer. So. It definitely took a toll. It definitely burnt me out, and I discovered surfing, I discovered acrobatics, but I discovered all these things to really just give me balance. And if I don't have balance, or even boredom, or I don't turn my mind off or get hyper present, whatever language I want to use, I don't have creativity.
Yeah. And
if I don't have creativity, well, what value do I bring? That is the value that I bring. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is my creativity. That's one of my superpowers. It's one of my secret sauces. So if I don't have that downtime or that time to play, then the sun doesn't shine at work either, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. There's this trap that we can all fall into occasionally, where we're projecting into the future a lot. We're not present. You touched on that momentarily. I'd love to come back to that, the presence of mind and just stopping and being at one with yourself, I guess you'd say, Rob. But
yeah.
So where are you right now?
I'm in Miami, Florida.
Fantastic. Now, what's a landmark near you that people might be familiar with apart from the beach?
What's a landmark that they might be familiar with?
Your local.
Yeah, well, so I moved here 5 months ago from New York, but South Beach is right here. All the bars and clubs in Miami. But where I am a landmark of where I am physically sitting.
Yep.
I'm literally on South Beach, literally on Lincoln Road and the water.
Oh, fantastic! What a view!
Is where I am.
So now, it's customary for us to talk about your hobbies, and I noticed in your bio you talked about enjoying the mountain life. Given that you've moved locations, it's now the beach life, isn't it?
It is. I was a professional ski instructor and whitewater raft guide at one point, just out of university. I guess you'd say uni.
Yep.
And definitely love that lifestyle. Definitely Jones it, but it's either mountains or beaches. It's whatever like you were touching upon. I think there's vocabulary out there where whether it's meditation, presence, Eckhart Tolle and the Power of Now will describe adrenaline junkies or enthusiasts as it's the only time that we could turn our mind off. I think at this point, or just be ever present. At this point, I have many things that allow me to do so. But like I just picked up kite surfing down here, and this weekend was a great weekend for it. And I got to just turn my mind off and just be in the moment. Nothing else existed, and I was just with the wind, the waves, the water, just me. The universe didn't exist. It was just that, and I came back so charged up and so refreshed this week. And even if I get a taste of that, I think it's so powerful across, who I am and how I show up in all aspects of my life.
This is completely relevant to how important it is as it relates to your professional life as well, and we'll pivot to that at some stage. But I know a lot of successful people, Rob, they're quite transient. If they enjoy, they enjoy the mountain life as you do, and they enjoy the beach life. Do you think you'll move backwards and forwards to get a taste of both throughout the different parts of the year?
Again, it's my first full year in Miami. I haven't experienced summer yet, so I think I'll be craving those mountains. Come August. Give me some dry, cool
give
weather.
Me some time.
Yeah. So, but it doesn't matter whether it's the beach or the mountains. Anything that has to do with water, whether it's a river or snow or a glacial lake, I'm happy. I'm just happy being outdoors and just using my body and sometimes abusing it, but just being out and having fun in nature is I think my happy place. I don't have to choose.
You've touched on something there. The fact that you've got 2 feet and a heartbeat, that you're alive and well, that says a lot about the value of life in itself. Now, what's your favorite movie? Do you ever watch movies?
I haven't watched movies in a while. I've been watching more TV.
Netflix?
I've been watching Netflix, but honestly, Zig Ziglar had a quote. I don't know if you know who he is. He's like the OG of one of the OGs. He's the Tony Robbins of the 70s and 80s for people who don't know him. But he had a quote that frontline workers will watch 30 to 40 hours of TV, but when you get to the executives, they'll watch an hour or two a week, and most of it's training videos. I'm going, oh. And I heard that about 10, 15 years ago, and I really try and read books or listen to Audible, and I'm trying to get in a Clubhouse. I don't know. It's not sticking yet.
Yeah, me neither.
But I'll listen to about anywhere from 15 to 20 books a month. Last year I got through 240 books on Audible.
Wow.
I'm pretty. One of my superpowers is I'm an auditory learner, so I could listen to a book at 3x and have full comprehension. So
the subconscious mind is open.
Yeah. Well, I'm also severely dyslexic, so I didn't read till I was 10, right?
Yep.
So the only way I learned was by listening. I couldn't read, so I got really good at it.
So Audible's been a blessing for you in many respects.
Oh my gosh, Audible is a whole game-changing thing. It was funny when I was growing up. They'd give us books on tape because actually in the States there's something from the Library of Congress that we get free books on tape if we have a visual impairment or you're dyslexic, you qualify. Yep. But they gave me this huge tape recorder. I mean, literally the thing was like 10 times the size of this, and I had to listen to tapes. I was so embarrassed, even though I was in my room, to use the thing. I couldn't do it. I couldn't bring myself to do it. So I've always had access to it, but now, the fact that it's on this thing and it's easy, and I just constantly listen and constantly find good books to listen to. So, but favorite book on entrepreneurship, Hard Things About Hard Things.
Yep.
It is a great one. And then in the fiction world, I would have to say Kafka on the Shore would be one of my favorite.
Excellent. So let's wind back a little bit, Rob. You're a kid, and you're having your early life experiences. What is one of the things you remember as a kid growing up that you remember fond memories of?
Oh, wow. I think skiing. I think family ski vacations and skiing, and even on the hard pack ice in New Hampshire. go to my cousin's place. I think would be some of my fondest memories growing up, for sure.
So when did you decide that entrepreneurialism was for you, Rob? And do you recall your first experience?
Yeah, so my family's run a company in the States for about 80 years. My great grandfather started a company in architectural glass and metal, and
you said 80 years. 80?
Yeah, 80 years or so.
Wow.
Yeah. My great grandfather came here as an immigrant. With my grandfather, they started up a glazer. They installed glass.
Glazier, yeah.
My grandfather grew up. My dad took it over, and he grew it into a distribution company. So in any case, I grew up. My dad would come home, and we always had family dinner every night, and he talked about his day. So he'd talk about entrepreneurship, and I'd listen to him. So it was just a dinner table. So whether it was probably did a few small things in high school, but the first real thing I did was we had the U.S. Open golf tournament every 8 years, comes by my parents' house at a golf course about a mile away called Wingfoot. And there was no parking within 20 miles, so I turn their lawn into a car park, and it was $150 a pop, and had 70, 100 cars there. So it was a fun little week.
A profitable one too.
It was a profitable one. I had to deal with, and it was good because I had to deal with regulation and law enforcement and code enforcement, because in the town there was no parking on the grass, and my dad was worried about his sprinklers. So there was definitely some hurdles to it wasn't all sunshine
easy.
and roses. No, and then my friends wanted a piece of the action because they were driving and shuttling, and I'm going, you're a taxi driver. I'm not giving you a piece of the action. So working with friends and learning some lessons there. Always great learning experiences, and on top of that, more so than even the financial.
Talk about a baptism of fire.
Well, I mean, there are small problems, right? But it's still microcosms of bigger things.
Of
right?
a bigger thing, yeah. Now, look,
Yeah.
you talked about the challenge you had with being dyslexic early on, and I guess your earlier desires to, put your nose to the grindstone and just work. How has that changed today? I guess, what do you suggest to people who are thinking that way?
Yeah, I mean, I think in your 20s, you can, and you can, and maybe you should put your head down and work hard and try and get places. And I think one of the things I've created in the 30s, and I guess maybe age has nothing to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
But now I really try and have wisdom, and to me, wisdom is learning from others' mistakes and taking them on as your own. And I think, I used to be like, well, I don't have an MBA. I need to learn by the School of Hard Knocks. I need to learn everything, and I need to, have that as my baptism by fire, and I need to put in my dues and stuff. And I think these days I try and work smarter, not harder.
Yes. Absolutely.
But I've also had the luxury of getting to that point, I guess, and I put in my dues. And I don't know if I could have done that back then.
There's a lot of, I guess, credibility for having formal education, but there's another whole dimension that opens up nowadays, especially given with the recent goings on across the world in relation to online learning. Do you think formal studies is as relevant nowadays, given that the door is open to so many more people? And wonder if you could talk to that.
That's a huge subject. I was actually just, I think the Wall Street Journal had a really interesting article about uni prices here in the States going, even state universities going up 3x, and
through the roof.
Everything going on with that. Or, I know people that paid, $200,000-$300,000 for a Ivy League graduate degree.
Wow.
And, how do you justify that? And how do you justify it? The kids going, a lot of them justify it by the network they make. And, right now, schools aren't giving discounts for what's going on right now. I have a lot of mixed feelings about higher education. To me, my degree, I feel like at some point it was a piece of paper.
Yep. And
I grew a lot through universities, and it was this piece of paper that you had to have to knock on people's doors. But did I grow up a ton? Sure. Do I apply any of the things I really learned in school? I don't really know. I don't want to knock a whole industry, but I do feel it's broken. Do I feel like massive online course platforms are the answer? No, I don't. Some stats from that I know from my industry in corporate education, 87% of learners will forget what they learned 6 weeks later. If you just give somebody an online course and say, watch this video, watch this video, watch this video, it doesn't work. The way we're hardwired to learn isn't by this traditional university education. Let's sit in a classroom and let's listen to people lecture.
Mm-hmm.
That never worked for me, for sure.
No.
Being dyslexic, no way.
No.
I had to get special schooling and all that, but we learn by our apprenticeship model. We learn by doing, right? We learn by getting our hands dirty. Even when I was speaking to a huge legal firm today, and I was speaking to a huge bank today, just in the course of my daily business, and and when I talk to my friends who are lawyers and bankers, I go, we have to get back to work. We have to get back to in person, because the associates, they still don't have, and we have some new technology that might help them, but they still don't have really good ways of training the associates, because it's always this apprenticeship model.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so sorry, I'm going the long way of answering your question, but I think learning by doing it, we've gotten so far away from that at some point, we everybody decided in the 80s that a university education is what's best.
That's the ticket.
That's a ticket. And one of the things that's really interesting with this whole year is that I think it's going to accelerate a few trends, right? AI is going to increase, e-commerce is increasing, 5G is increasing. If you listen to Ray Kurzweil, there's a singularity coming, which is a whole other ball game. But when AI gets better, there's an interesting, and 5G, and there's something that's interesting that's going to happen in the next 3 to 5 years. And what happens if these white-collar jobs that we all rely on, whether it's, accounting and some legal and some more of the entry-level stuff that's repetitive, can be replaced by technology. It could be very interesting to what's happening and what happens in the next 10 years and what jobs are even available. Even things like radiologists.
Yep.
At some point, is that what happens there?
Yep.
But Michael Bloomberg got a lot of flack for saying this about 5 years ago. They go, what career path would you recommend to somebody going to university? He goes, be a plumber, and everybody freaked out at him. And Michael Bloomberg is one of the top 20 richest people, basically self-made. But the interesting about a plumber is a plumber can make $200,000 or $400,000 a year. Job security is intense. There's you're not getting replaced by technology.
Yeah.
And you got to deal with people's shit every day, but at the end of the day, you can make a very good living.
Yep.
Sorry, pun intended. And I hope this isn't a PG
program.
No,
that's fine.
And
you put a smile on my face.
But it's a lucrative. It can be a lucrative career.
Of course.
You control your destiny, and you're not going to get replaced. Where a lot of the degrees that are going out there, I don't know what the future brings. Nobody really does, right? But I do know a plumber. His job's not going anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. That's sage advice and sage insights. I love that. Thank you so very much for sharing. Because I remember going to university. All I ended up with for many years was a huge bill. So that wasn't the outcome that I was expecting or planning for.
No, I don't know what advice to give. To give a 17, 18-year-old about what to do with university, I would say, because, it's interesting for me, right? So I graduated university and I immediately moved to basically, I moved back to New York City, moved in with mom and dad, and was like, all right, I want to get experience. I want to work for my parents. I want to work for my dad, and eventually, go work in that business. And that's a whole nother story that we won't get into today, but that was not fun. Tried that when I was 27. That was the worst year of my life.
No.
In any case, but it led to everything else. However, out of school, I was like, okay, let me get experience in their field. Worked for 3 months in New York City, living with mom and dad, making $30K, going, this is not work for New York City. And moved to Vail, moved to Colorado. And I started 3 companies out there, fortunately, but I also did some ski instructing and stuff. But I knew a lot of friends worked out there as ski bums, and I guess I was at some point too. And I have the most affinity for that term and for all my friends, but some of them didn't have degrees, right?
Yep.
And they decided, okay, now I want to wake up and I want to start my life. They had to go back to school, get a degree, and then go. Yep. And I was like, okay, I want to not start my life. That's maybe the wrong term, but I wanted to switch gears. They wanted to get a different career, and they had to start from scratch, and it took 4 years, 5 years for them to make that move. Me, I had the degree. All I had to do was go, okay, I'm moving. I'm going here.
Doing it
right?
Now.
It gives you the flexibility. It gives you, especially if you don't know what you want to do, it gives you latitude. But at the same time, if you don't know what you want to do, you could accrue quite a bit of debt. So.
Oh yeah, it's weighing it up, isn't it? I wonder if we can just pivot momentarily. I'd love to talk about your Instagram page. You and your friends hold some incredibly what look like challenging geometric shapes with acro yoga. That looks fascinating. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so 10 years ago, 11 years ago, I got in, had a girlfriend at the time. She was a yoga instructor. She wanted to do this thing called acro yoga. I go, I don't want to touch people. This is weird. And next thing you know, I said, this isn't so bad. And we were doing it 5 nights a week. And it just became, when we were talking about earlier in the program, what I did as a de-stressor, I wanted something really different. I wanted something I could do active in New York City, and acro yoga it was. And what you see some of my older Instagram posts is more acrobatics. Some of my coaches are in, multiple of my coaches are in Cirque du Soleil. My former training partner went to circus school. She's touring Europe this year, performing. So it more became circus arts, which so I know a lot of circus freaks, and they're amazing, amazing friends.
Takes all types to make the world spin around.
What's that?
Takes all types to make the world spin round.
Exactly. But it's one of the things that is so powerful about acro yoga and acrobatics is, and what it really taught me, was trust and communication. And my whole job was to convey trust. Like somebody, and for those of you who can't see it right now, basically, I was literally, people are literally doing a handstand on my hands. And sometimes I'd even throw them up off my hands and catch their feet, or have them do a full flip and catch them on my hands. Right? Wow. My whole job is to convey trust and to communicate verbally and non-verbally what we're going to do and how we're going to execute it. Now, but for some reason, I always like challenges. So at one point, I was dating my acrobatic partner, which is less common than you'd think. And we dated for 8 months, and we broke up. And we broke up amicably. But 3 days later, she goes, well, I still want to work with you. I go, in acrobatics, I go, well, of course you do. I'm amazing.
There was never any doubt.
But that's what's going through my head. And she was amazing, too. And so 3 days later, we started working out together still after a breakup. And you're touching, you're getting close, body parts are in your face. And which is fine, but then there's still all this tension, emotions, energy. So after 6 months of this, we had, you try communicating with an ex when things aren't going well, when there's tension of doing these scary things that you could drop somebody in these really adrenaline situations, and communicating with an ex at high adrenaline and communicating well and softly was such a amazing learning experience for me. Because
can you use that in business, do you think?
Absolutely. I mean, I put a lot of work into my communication and a lot of work into my EQ. And, my natural state is, I don't know if you know much about Enneagrams, but I'm an Enneagram 8, which really means I'm like the tank, the bull, the guy who naturally pushes things, right? I was a college wrestler. Right, I'm the Charger. I'm also a Taurus, but those things don't really work in business. They work for my dad, in construction and yelling and trying to get his way, but they don't work anymore. And that's my natural state. So in my 20s, I was very much like that. Now people would never even guess that, or that's the feedback I get. but developing my EQ and my communication and not acting emotionally, I think, is some of the largest triumphs I've had in business and how I act and interact.
Yeah, it's wonderful. I'm loving this conversation, Rob. Thank you so very much. Now, I've looked a lot over your online presence through, obviously, Instagram, LinkedIn, your online coaching and training platform, which we're going to talk about in a moment. Also, your personal robmatzkin.com website. There's something that stuck out for me. I'd love for you to talk about is what is Ikigai, and what is that all about?
Yeah, so Ikigai is something I stumbled upon a few years ago, right? It's a Japanese way of being, right? And it's a Japanese just way of life where if you have Ikigai, you have balance, right? And I think one of the things, let me actually just pull up the chart so I could speak to it a little bit more powerfully, even though I just so I have it in front of me. So I don't screw anything up. But really, if you imagine a Venn diagram with 4 circles interlacing, the circle is Ikigai. On the top, you'll have love, what you really love to do, what the world needs, what you get paid for, and what you're good at, right? And every time all these different things intersect, you could have you could have a passion, you could have a mission, you could have a profession, you could have a vocation, right? But one of the things that I was always chasing for like 10, 15 years. When I was a ref kid, I was like, I have the perfect job. I'm paying my bills. This is great. But the grass was always greener. And, when I was 25, I was just like, this is amazing. It's a way to spend the summers, right? But there's always something missing because I wasn't really doing what the world needed, right? I was doing what I could get paid for, what I was good at, and I loved. But there's still that world needed missing thing. But all of a sudden, especially when I do at MyQuest, where our mission is to really make sure people can accomplish their goals and dreams and really successfully learn in a digital environment. I have this centeredness and this ease where I don't have this anxiety that something's wrong or something's missing or the grass is greener. I know the grass is really green here, and I'm really happy about that. And I could just manifest a bigger lawn or manifest a bigger plate or whatever I want to do, that I'm not saying, no, I need to chase that or something's wrong or I'm not in the right place. And Ikigai, I think one of the powerful things about that is it gives you a framework to look at things arbitrarily and see what's missing for you.
So you can, I guess, pivot, change your direction in life, change your mindset around this model as a guide.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic. Now, you touched on MyQuest, and I'd love to learn about this. We're going to talk deeply about this now. Where did the idea for MyQuest come about? Yeah, so, my business part. Yeah, so my business partner actually had an idea. He watched a TED Talk 7-8 years ago now by Jane McGonigal on how games allow people to learn. So he started this journey of how do you really successfully teach people online? And over, 6 years ago, I joined him on answering that question. We pivoted a few times, but our mission has always been this question of, what you were touched upon earlier. How do people really learn, right? How do we actually be effective at learning, and how do we be effective at digital learning? Because there's so much out there, that there's so much knowledge and information out there, and there's a thesis that's about 10 years old now that if you just democratize knowledge and just allow people information, they'll learn and they'll succeed. It's not a bad thesis, but one of the things that we found is, or studies have found, is that 8 to about 15% of individuals could really learn like that successfully. Most of us need to be held accountable for what they're doing. Most of us need to actually take action on what we're learning. Most of us need feedback on what we're doing. And most of us really need to implement what we're learning in order for it to really stick. Which is why I go back to this whole traditional education versus apprenticeship education. So we actually have a learning model. We actually call it AFT, which is action, feedback, and trigger. It's like a triangle that really what we focus on and everything that we build out is how do we make sure
that we fit in those parameters, and how do we build things out? Because if we stick to that structure, then people will really learn with us, right? Because they'll engage with the learning content. And we've run massive correlational studies that there's a direct correlation between how much somebody engages, likes, posts, comments, interacts, does something with learning,
Yep.
and how much they're really going to complete and how much they're going to retain that knowledge. Otherwise, whether you go to a seminar or a workshop, take a course, it's going to go in one ear and out the other, and we're going to spend all this time and effort doing stuff without really retaining it. And I think it's really, I don't necessarily get the point of doing it, right? If you're not going to retain it. I don't get the point of for me doing the university education. I don't remember much of it. I learned everything in business at my dinner table and by getting out there and doing it.
That reminds me of the story you talked about with the car parks earlier on. You learnt about entrepreneurialism by baptism of fire. The same could be said for learning. Now, is this, with MyQuest, is this about having, I guess, accountability partners? Is that what you provide as coaches and consultants? What's the process?
So we're a technology shell. Right.
Yep.
So we give our partners, the corporations we work with, the trainers and the coaches that we work with, the tools, tactics, and techniques to really succeed. Right. When a trainer or somebody in our organization is used to giving a lecture in front of 20 people or 2,000 people, they have a toolbox. Right. And now, especially today on this device on Zoom, they're a little limited with their toolbox. So we give them their toolbox back. Some of those things are, one of our 30 features happens to be accountability partners. Some other things are around sharing happens to be communities and building habits and really using push notifications, reminders based on what's happening or not happening, right? But there's many different things that we're doing, including packaging in a very tight UX that's more consumer friendly than most of our other people in the market. Because one of the things that I found fascinating really about, I guess, B2B technology, and this I like making broad statements, but they don't necessarily always apply to everything. But one of the things that I found as a general rule is, and I get this way of thinking, but I certainly think the opposite is, most of my competitors build products for their customers, but they don't develop products in a B2B world, but they don't develop the product for their end user. And, it's a fascinating thing. I might be completely wrong, but I'd rather build a product. My end user these days is, again, as a business trainer, as a training organization or a really large or a conglomerate. Right?
Yep.
And all my competitors build it for the learning manager inside the large conglomerate. But they don't care what the employee's experience is or how successful the employee is. They only are beholden to the person cutting them the check, which makes a lot of business sense. But in my mind, really making sure the end user has the best experience makes the most business sense, because it's the most stickiest and it's going to get the most utilization, right?
It's one thing to learn, isn't it? But it's another thing to chock that wheel, get up the step and continually improve, isn't it? You have to have an outcome.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting in this whole space of university education, corporate education, this whole online education space. When I speak to people, I remember speaking to somebody last week, and I go, well, so tell me a little bit more. I always try and get related to my clients, my potential clients. I'm like, tell me a little bit more. What are your KPIs? Well, it's hard for us to measure those things because they're scared because the outcomes aren't very good. I go, okay, well, what are your priorities this year? Well, maybe if we produce all the content that our executives want this year, that would be great. I go, well, how do you know if it's successful? Well, if our executives are happy. I go, well, what are you measuring? Well, we're not.
Very vague.
Because they're not, because they're scared. And I hope too many people in the L&D don't hear this. But no, I'm pretty honest, right? And I don't necessarily know why. I think they're scared. I don't think they have the right metrics in place. But the metrics aren't very good, and everybody's kind of chasing their tails right now. So it's very interesting being in this space, being very driven by, being a startup, being driven by KPIs, being driven by metrics, and really want to make that impact in the end user, the end employees, make that difference. But sometimes it's pushing into sand, mud, water, but I think one of the biggest things that I've learned, and we've been getting traction this year on it, is just staying the course and being true to what we believe in.
That's fantastic. Now, I wonder, Rob, if you could just quickly share with us, is MyQuest the core of your business different to MyQuest Employee Connect, or is it part of the same experience?
So we have an umbrella, right? We have three different main products, right? We have our MyQuest umbrella. We have a division that focuses on business trainers, which is what we call MyQuest Learn. Yep. And then we have some enterprise level products, which is MyQuest Connect. One of the things we realized, me and my business partner were sitting down in, I guess it was San Francisco at the time, and we're going, what do enterprises really need? And we realized, and this is October 2020? Mm-hmm. Yeah, October 2020. And we realized that everything's switching to Slack, everything's switching to Teams, internal communication tools are what's going on at Microsoft Teams. And so we started bringing our products into, and our philosophy into Microsoft Teams. So we're actually a strategic Microsoft partner these days, and we actually really create learning in the flow of work and engaging learning through utilizing Microsoft Teams, which is a communications channel to do so. And then we have some independent learning platforms if people aren't using Teams. But it's for us, again, it's all about bringing that core philosophy to learning.
So for anybody who's on the call today, I'll be absolutely making sure that the links are available back to Rob and his wonderful team. Now, on that, Rob, when individuals and corporations want to find you, connect with you, talk with you more, learn more about how to get involved, where do they go, and what is the process once they get there? Yeah,
so obviously we have our site. It's MyQuest.co. Is a great place to start. We have a lot of great information there. My email is rob@myquest.co. Happy to answer anybody's questions. Happy to hop on a call, always with people that have questions around that, and what we're doing inside of learning and education.
Thank you so much, Rob. Now, again, I will be making sure that those links are back to Rob are available if you want to connect with Rob. He's obviously on LinkedIn. He's on Instagram. Anywhere and everywhere, he is there. And with all that being said, Rob, I've had just such a wonderful time spending some time with you on the My Future Business show today.
Hey, Rick, thank you so much for your time. I had a great time as well.
Thanks for joining us today. If you enjoyed the call, then make sure to subscribe, leave a comment, share us with your friends, and book your spot on the show at myfuturebusiness.com/interviews. And if you're looking for solutions that will help grow your business, then visit myfuturebusiness.com/shop.